Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome to another edition of Inside Arsenal, and lots to talk about today. It's going to be a jam-packed one. Just a flag, if you haven't seen it or heard it or listened to it already, then that is a bit of a Kai Havertz special that I've put out earlier today, talking with Nazar Kinsella from the Evening Standard, who covers Chelsea for the Standard, looking at Havertz in depth, what he's brought to Chelsea, what he could bring to Arsenal. So if you haven't heard that or haven't watched that yet, then please do find it in whatever platform you are listening or watching this episode in. Well worth your time, if I do say so myself. Nazar offers some really interesting insight into exactly what Havertz could bring to Arsenal and what happened with him at Chelsea. We will, of course, talk about Kai Havertz a little bit later in this episode, but we've got to start by discussing Declan Rice. I said yesterday that I thought the Manchester City's offer was going to be the start of the end game for Declan Rice, and it certainly feels right now like it was, because things have moved forward at pace in the last 24 hours. In fact, in about the last 12 hours. In fact, with Arsenal submitting a huge £105 million offer to West Ham for Declan Rice. Just saying those words seems pretty amazing to me. Arsenal offering £105 million for a player, 100 million of those up front, and then sort of an extra five over installments. Now, it hasn't been accepted yet. It hasn't, most importantly, been rejected yet. Talks are continuing over the exact structure of that deal, but it is advancing at pace. And Declan Rice to Arsenal feels closer now than certainly since closer now than it has at any point, I would say. And that man, Mikel Arteta, feels like it's very, very close to getting the man that he absolutely wanted in this transfer window. And the big reason for that is that Manchester City have pulled out of the race, as you can see here from Jack, who works at the Daily Mail. Manchester City have made it known today that they have pulled out of the race, or they will not be matching Arsenal's offer for Declan Rice anyway. And that, barring something pretty dramatic happening, potentially from Manchester United, who we know have been lurking in the background for Declan Rice. But providing something pretty dramatic doesn't happen with United and Declan Rice, I mean, that pretty much leaves the pathway clear for Arsenal to get this deal over the line for Declan Rice. Now, like I said, this bid that has gone in £33 million higher than Arsenal's current transfer record, which stands for Nicolas Pepe, of course, which they paid for Lille. It has not been accepted yet. Talks are continuing for West Ham. West Ham, quite rightly, we're waiting to see what Manchester City did in response to Arsenal's offer. Manchester City now have made it known that they will not be matching Arsenal's offer. And so talks between the two clubs are now advancing to try and come up to a suitable agreement. We know that West Ham are still not, overly keen on the structure that Arsenal have proposed, which is believed to be over around sort of 5-year period. West Ham want those installments paid sooner than that, potentially over 2 years, which is huge, to be honest. We're talking £50 million each for the next 2 seasons there, which is, is pretty much unheard of with these huge transfers. They're sort of normally spread over a few years. To do it over 2 years is, it's a big, big ask, especially for a club that does not have unlimited riches like some of them. So, those talks are going to progress over the course, I would say, in the next sort of 12 hours or so. But I hate to say we're getting there, because anything can happen. Obviously, West Ham can decide to dig their heels in and decide, no, we're not going to accept this. You're going to have to come back with something new. But it feels like for the first time in a while that Arsenal now are very, very close to getting this deal over the line for Declan Rice, which would be huge for them, huge for Mikel Arteta, like I said, who has just wanted this transfer for so long. It was the one he really was determined to get over the line this summer. He knew how important it was. He knew how important it was for his the sort of project at Arsenal and the midfield rebuild, which was always really, really key to him going into the summer transfer window. And now he is very, very close to having that done. And it's just a huge thing, and as you can imagine, it's just gone nuts on social media. Everyone's talking about it. We're talking 33 million pounds more than Nicolas Pepe. That's not just breaking your transfer record, that is absolutely smashing it. It's pretty remarkable to me. And you see here, there's one question that's come in. So Fabrizio Romano has reported that Man City will not match Arsenal's bid. Does this mean that West Ham have no choice but to accept our bid now? Now, it's not just Fabrizio who's been reporting this. Everyone who's close to Manchester City pretty much reported this at the same time. And if you work in journalistic field like I do, that basically means that the club has sent out a briefing to the reporters who are close to them in terms of their pack, saying this is where we are. You can put this out if you want. And, that's gone round. All the Manchester City pack have pretty much reported at the same time. I think Jack was first, who I flagged up, who works for the Daily Mail. When you say, does this mean West Ham have no choice? They still have every choice because he's their player. They don't have to accept this. They can still say to Arsenal, yeah, Man City are out the running. We're still not going to do it. But, Declan Rice is really, really key to this. I think, we know that he wants to join Arsenal. He's always been keen for this move to happen. And I think that, he's going to have a big part to play over the next sort of 24 hours or so in terms of what he says to West Ham, what his people say to West Ham. They don't want to keep an unhappy player. Yes, he's really, really important to them, but they've already admitted he can go. He wants to go. He doesn't want to leave on bad terms. He wants to leave on good terms. And so I think, what he says or the sort of messages he sends out will be key to this as well over the next, however many, I don't know, day, 2 days or so. But, West Ham have every right still to reject this offer. But I think in their interest, in Declan Rice's interest, in Arsenal's interest, the best thing now is just to get around the table, thrash out the final sort of details, the structure, come to some sort of compromise, because this is a huge offer. They wanted around 100 million. They've got 105 million pounds on the table. Yes, the structure, it might not suit them ideally at the moment, but there's got to be some sort of middle ground here so that he can be happy and so that they can, move on. They can spend the money that they're going to get in and commit to it. Because it's not like, whoever they want to bring in, they're not going to be doing it over 2 installments. They'll be offering whatever amount for whatever player, but they'll be asking to pay it over 4 or 5 years. It's what every club does. So, just make Arsenal, if it's a 100 mil deal over 5 years, they're still getting 20 million pound guaranteed every season for the next 5 years coming in from Arsenal. That does an awful lot to the bank balance, and it helps them an awful lot with structuring deals that they want to do for other players. So I think it suits all parties for that. We'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, that's the latest on Declan Rice. I'm sure by tomorrow's video, this is going to move on even more. So we will see how it goes. Get your questions, get your comments in. And yeah, we'll see where we are in 24 hours' time when it comes to Declan Rice. Okay, let's move on to this man, shall we? Amid all the drama of Declan Rice over the last 24 hours, if you're watching this on YouTube rather than listening to it on podcast, you'll be able to see what I'm showing on the screen right now. I'm sure you've probably seen it already, but the Kai Havertz announcement video was leaked earlier today. We've seen him there. He's wearing the number 29 shirt. We see a little quote above him there saying, I think this club has such a big history. We're waiting for Arsenal to officially publish this video and officially announce it at the time of recording this, which is 11:45 on Wednesday. They haven't, but it is all over the internet right now. I'm sure you've probably seen it. Kai Havertz in his Arsenal shirt. We saw the picture yesterday that had been leaked, but this was even more. This is the full video. This is the interview, his announcement interview that has been done. They've done it abroad. It wasn't in England. And here's some of the things that he has had to say. He said, it's super exciting for me personally. I'm so glad to join this amazing club. I think this club has such a big history, and I hope we can achieve a lot of things. I'm just looking forward to meeting all the players, the staff. It's going to be exciting. He was then gone on. He was asked about the togetherness in the Arsenal squad and whether he kind of felt that while he was playing against them for Chelsea, this new togetherness that has been built under Mikel Arteta. And he said, yes, I experienced it myself a couple of times. You can just see it. I think the family mentality that the team has on the pitch and they have off it as well. The team mentality in the squad is very, very high and you can feel it. I think that was one of the reasons why it was so hard to play against Arsenal. Obviously, there's so many talented players and there's big room to achieve big things as well. So that's what Kai Havertz has had to say. We'll hear a lot more from him when Arsenal do officially make this announcement and confirm this announcement. But if you haven't seen it already, then all you have to do is have a look on social media, because his interview is all over the place. And Kai Havertz there wearing number 29, going to be Arsenal's first signing of the summer, unless they wait and Declan Rice is done before that. But I can't imagine that, with the fact that this video is now out there. It doesn't really serve Arsenal much use to sort of sit on it for much longer. And yeah, we'll wait and see what time that announcement comes, whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow. But Kai Havertz there in his Arsenal shirt. Quite a few of you sent in questions about Kai Havertz, so I will get to them. There's a couple of them to go over at the end of this video. But just lastly, before we move on to that, a bit of speculation at the moment about Folarin Balogun and potentially Marseille being in for him. Now, we know quite a few clubs in for him. Quite a few clubs are in for him. AC Milan are one of them, who have been sniffing around. A couple of other clubs from Italy, definitely some interest in England as well. But now we're hearing Marseille potentially as an option. They're looking to find a partner that can work with Alexis Sanchez and Balogun, who, of course, they know very, very well because they saw him last season close hand while he played for Reims, are potentially in for him. I think L'Équipe reporting that. Whether Marseille have the finances that Arsenal would want to sign Balogun potentially is another thing, but we shall have to wait and see how that progresses. But let me know whether you think that would be a good move for Folarin Balogun, staying in France and going to Marseille, who, of course, are a huge club, and it's certainly done no harm for someone like Matteo Guendouzi going there. He's had a fantastic time at Marseille, really taking his game almost to another level, and you expect he's going to get a big, big move out of it. So it could be a good stepping stone for Folarin Balogun. And one thing is for sure, if Arsenal paying this sort of money for Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, and potentially Jurriën Timber, we're talking over £200 million on 3 signings at the start of this transfer window. With Arsenal committing that amount of money to new signings, they are going to have to make some sales as well, you would think. And Folarin Balogun is one of those players at the very top of the top of the list when it comes to potentially bringing some money in. Okay, let's move on to some of your questions, shall we? Mr. Banner here says, well, Charles, did you ever think you would see the day Arsenal offer £105 million for a player? No. No, I have to say, you go back to the days of Wenger and before the Ozil signing and the frustration over how little Arsenal were offering for players after the constraints of the move to the Emirates. You know, for Arsenal to be offering £105 million for players, pretty remarkable. For any club who isn't state-funded or a Real Madrid type club, it's just a monumental number. Full credit to the owners for doing it. I mean, they've spent a lot of money in the last couple of years, or I hate to say they've spent, because technically I'm not sure if it's their money or not, or they've just found ways of Arsenal spending this money in terms of borrowing and doing it against the club. I don't know, but you know, they've certainly found ways of backing the recruitment in the last few windows, and this is a pretty dramatic step forward. Like I said, smashing the club transfer record by £33 million potentially in one swoop. I mean, that is pretty remarkable, especially in the summer when you're also about to drop 65 million on Kai Havertz and potentially about 40 on Jurriën Timber as well. So I didn't miss the banner. I did not think I would see the day. I'm very happy that I have. It's exciting. It says a lot about Arsenal, a lot about where they are as a club. And as I've said before, I think this would be a monumental signing for Arsenal, the biggest since Sol Campbell in terms of a statement going out in terms of the clubs they've had to beat off. You know, if they get this over the line, they've beaten Manchester City to a player, the treble winners, the richest, well, one of the richest clubs in the world, with Pep Guardiola as manager, and Arsenal have beaten them to an England international, an established Premier League player. And that says an awful lot about where Arsenal are, I think. Russell says, Charles, City is not a bigger club than Arsenal. Arsenal have had a lot more silverware history, bigger fan base. You failed to mention the only thing guaranteed at City isn't trophies that they're going to get nicked for cheating, 115 FFP charges. I certainly hope I didn't say that City are a bigger club than Arsenal. If I did, then I absolutely didn't mean that, because they're not. No chance. Arsenal are definitely a bigger club than Manchester City. Absolutely. So I'm not sure. I haven't gone back and listened to that. But if I did say that, that was just something that slipped out and was wrong, because clearly they're not. I know Arsenal are a bigger club than Manchester City. Manchester City, and aren't as big a club as lots of clubs in England. They're just very successful at the moment because they've spent an awful lot of money. And like you said, they've spent that money and there's FFP, 115 FFP charges hanging over their head. I think what I might have said, or what I meant to said, was that, at the moment, City are the best team in the world. I don't think there's any denying that. They've just won the treble. So they are the best team in the world and they've got the best manager in the world. But they're certainly not the biggest club in the world and they're not the best club in the world. They're just the best team in the world at the moment. So that's what I meant by that. So thank you for flagging, Russell, if there was a bit of a slip of the tongue by me in the last episode. Stuart says, hi, Charles. Do you believe that with the amount of different coaches Kai Havertz has had during his time at Chelsea, it would be unfair to judge his progression? Surely what's needed is a good, steady team around him. I see a real diamond here. I think it could turn out to be the best transfer this year. I do. And I spoke about that with Naz yesterday in the video that we did on him and the podcast we did on him. And, it's very hard to judge any player, when they've had to play under about 4 different managers. They're constantly being moved in and around in different positions. Last year, Chelsea were an absolute basket case of a club, a mess. So it's very hard to judge a player. And I think coming to Arsenal, which is going to be a very stable environment, which he's not been used to, where he's going to be extremely well coached. And he's going to know, like all players know, exactly what their role is in the team when he's playing. I think that at the end of this season is when I'll properly judge Kai Havertz. And potentially not even at the end of the season, because even when I had my interview with Tomiyasu last year, he told me that it took him and took the rest of the players 2 years to understand exactly what Arteta meant and how to get really comfortable with the way he trains and how different it is. So it might not be next year we see the best of Kai Havertz. It might be the following year. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be unfair to judge his progression a little bit because of what's happened at Chelsea, and hopefully we get to see him really sort of hit the levels that we saw at Leverkusen and fulfill the undoubted quality he has, which is, I think everyone knows what he's got, but he's just not really been able to show it during his time at Chelsea. Will says, if we were looking for another Xhaka, we may as well have kept the actual Xhaka. He's not been signed to replace him. Talking about Kai Havertz there. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Will. But, in terms of when I said that he might be coming in, to fill that sort of number 8 role, I don't necessarily mean that means to play in the exact way that Mikel Arteta wanted Granit Xhaka to play. I think there's a danger of falling into that he's just going to come in and play the exact same role that Xhaka did. I think he might fill that position, but he might be asked to play in a different kind of way. Now, we've kind of seen Arteta's system and his ideas sort of progress each season. It's changed. It was 3 at the back, then it was kind of 4-2-3-1, then it was 4-3-3. I don't think even if it is kind of going to stay as a 4-3-3 next season, that necessarily means it's going to be the exact same system that we saw from him last year. It might evolve, and the fact that Havertz is coming in to play in that number 8 role might be a big sign of the evolution that Arteta has in his mind, that he wants to change things a little bit. He wants to change how Arsenal set up, so it's not quite as rigid, the 4-3-3 that we saw before with Granit Xhaka. So when I say that he's coming in potentially to play in that number 8 role, I don't necessarily mean that's the exact same. He's coming in to play the exact same role that Granit Xhaka had in the team, because it might just be the next natural involvement of this side under Mikel Arteta and the system under Mikel Arteta. And that's it from today's video. That's a lot of your questions, the last of your questions. Thank you very much for coming in. If you've been listening to this on YouTube, please do hit me up in the comments below with anything you want to talk about for tomorrow's video. If you're listening to this on any of the podcast platform it's now available on, thank you very much for the support. It's great to see the downloads increasing by the day when it comes to the podcasts. So really appreciate that as well. And look, go off, have yourself a very good Wednesday. It's going to be a pretty dramatic one. I imagine the next 24 hours, we're probably going to see quite a lot happening when it comes to Arsenal. We might have the Havertz announcement made official. Who knows what's going to happen with Declan Rice? As I said, those talks progressing right now as I speak with West Ham to try and come to some sort of a compromise over this £105 million package that Arsenal have put on the table for Declan Rice. And yeah, who knows when we're going to hear exactly what West Ham have had to say about that. But thank you very much for watching, for listening. Have a very good day, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.